You're listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast.
You're listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast. My name is Sean Wilkie, and along with my awesome co host, we interview the innovators in this space. Ivan, please go ahead and get us started.
Hey, I'm Ivan Zach. I'm excited to introduce Steve Castillo. Steve is the president and CEO of Profit Solver, leading the way in helping veterinary practices boost profitability and drive EBITDA growth. As a co-founder of Profit Solver and with previous experience at Walters Clore and as a Taco Bell franchisee, he has a strong strategy development and business growth background. His patented evidence-based pricing software has transformed over 3,700 practices, reflecting his commitment to empowering veterinary business owners and practice managers to succeed. Steve, thank you for finding the time. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
So I was very much looking forward to this conversation. For everybody who is listening, what is a profit solver and what do you guys do?
Yeah, so Profit Solver really is it's a patented software solution, as you mentioned, that we combine that with our industry consulting expertise, right, to help you find the hidden profit potential in your practice. So it's out there. We just help you find it. And so what we do is we empower veterinary practices really to optimize the pricing, uncover those hidden profits, and really run more efficiently using clinic-specific data and financial analysis. And it's really more of an educational approach. There's a lot of learning and discovery that goes on when we deal with practices, and they're looking at their business in the way they've never have done before. And as I mentioned recently, we just added Profit Solver bookkeeping services because it's just a natural fit to further enhance that financial management and profitability of each practice that we deal with.
3,700 practices later, guessing you've learned a few things about the veterinary industry. My question is, what is the most glaringly obvious problem to get to the maximum profit?
Well,
$1 million question there.
so it's a multitude of things. Sometimes it's actually the owners or the practice managers themselves that block themselves from moving forward. They have this fear mentality. A lot of people have this fear-based approach when it comes to pricing. And so they don't understand where the pricing should be, right? So they think about, well, am I pricing right? Am I at the right point? And they really don't have that knowledge or comfort level to say, well, you know what? Since I really don't know what I'm doing with regard to pricing, I'm going to go look around the neighborhood and find out what everybody else is pricing. So this way, at least I'm in the ballpark and I'm pricing appropriately.
So let's dive into pricing. So pricing we just went through a huge revamp and we use several sources of information for that. Competition was one of them, but also we looked at the fee guides. We looked at many factors down to, reviews on Google, and every third or fifth comment was affordable and how much they love to be here, which I said we're too cheap. So what is your guide and how does this software help to determine that? And what is the sort of the suggestive most areas of opportunity on the pricing?
Yeah, so I think what we have to do is we have to go upstream a little bit and just, look at the levers of profitability. I mean, we're going to get to price in a second, but there are three levers of profitability. And these are the only three in any business that you can pull in order to affect the bottom line. And that is price times your volume minus your cost. And a lot of times in our industry, we say, well, we got to improve the bottom line. So I'm going to focus in on costs and see what I can save, or I'm going to try to improve my top line revenue. Price is obviously another lever, but it is the biggest lever, almost 2-to-1 over everything else. And Harvard Business Study did a review on this and said, if you had a 5% improvement in four categories, cost, revenue, cost of goods sold, and pricing, which one had the greatest impact to the bottom line? Pricing was at 22%. The next closest was revenue, which was at 12%. So it is the most profound impact you can have to the bottom line, yet it's the least amount of time. Now, Dr. Zach, he just talked about spending time and doing some analysis. I'm just curious, how much time did you spend looking around doing this and actually doing this activity? How many hours would you account and say that was for?
Well, it was a collective effort. So combined, I would say, I just know that it took us over a month probably altogether, to like with three people doing, one was doing the comparison to competition, one person was doing comparison to fee guide, and then yeah, that was I think it took us about a month as a team.
Well, that's great. And I think you've done a very exhaustive study and analysis. And so what we do is when we break that down, I think most people do not spend the necessary amount of time to even get to the point where you guys were. And so they stop short of that and just move on to their day-to-day activity. But what we did is we break things down into three pricing categories. We look at products and inventory, we look at labs, and we look at service fees. Now, products and inventory, that's easy stuff because guess what we get from our vendors when we're going to price those out? We get an invoice. So we know exactly what that cost us. And we know if we want to mark it up by a certain point, we have markup schedules that we provide. So at least there's a standardization around that. And that is really helpful. Now, when we get into labs, if it's a reference lab, great. We still get an invoice. We know what it is. We can do a markup. When you do it in house, or if you're doing a service, whether it be a dental or whether it be an exam, guess what you don't get? You do not get an invoice. So you have no idea, what is this truly costing me? What is my break even on these services? And so what we did with our software is we're able to understand exactly when we put all your information and your data point in. Now, you said you spent a month doing this. It'll take us about a week to put all that data in. And what you're going to have as the outcome is you're going to understand exactly what the break even is of your service, whether it's profitable or not profitable. And then from those data points, now we're able to kind of go to work and understand, look at your market, competitive pricing. And now we start picking and choosing where we can make those selective increases by how much to help us achieve the profit we want to make as a goal that we set for ourselves.
So what are you comparing it to? So when you're saying that, yeah, so how does that work? What's the secret sauce behind it? Because there's, you can compare, as far as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, the competition, then there's a fee guide. Then there's the other thing that we compared, for example, we're urgent care. So one factor that I've put in is essentially willingness to pay, because you have the elective procedures that you can elect to do or not to do, or when there's unprecedented tariffs implied across the world, or something else like that, then you might decide that there's no willingness to pay at the moment. But if you're an emergency hospital or urgent care, the situation is different. So those are the three factors that we took into play. What does this software do? How does it do the sort of magic behind it?
Well, first off, if you look at every practice, guess what's different? Your financials. Your financial statements are different from one practice to the next. Your balance sheet is very different. Your obligations to what profit you really need to have in your business to support, not only staff increases and your business model, also things that you're paying on the balance sheet side, that all comes from profit. So the first thing we do is we use you specifically. We don't compare you to anybody else. So first thing is we look inward. We look at your business and we put that in. We understand exactly what your current profit level is, and then we talk to you about where you want to be as a profit goal based upon all these different factors that you have at your business and where you want to be, right? So our software really puts all that data into the application, and then we're able to now look at everything on a case by case basis. So if you want to look at dental grade 1, we can pull up dental grade 1. We have our secret sauce also is activity based cost accounting. We do time and motion studies, so we know exactly who's doing what, how much time are they spending on average, and then we discuss that with our clients like you, and we'll talk to you through, here's the time and motion study for this dental grade 1, here's what the doctor's doing, here's what the tech's doing. On average, we've done over 3,700 of these, so we have really good averages. What are you doing differently, if anything? Oh, great, we'll take the doctor down a minute. Well, the tech will take over from this, and we'll bump them up another minute or two. Now we've really dialed it in, so we understand exactly what the break even and the profit and loss is. So I would argue, too, that market pricing really doesn't exist to a certain point because it's really a living, breathing, moving transaction that's out there that's changing all the time. When you get an invoice at your practice from one of your competitors and you look at that and say, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're charging X for this particular service. Well, either we're over or above that and you make yourself feel good about that, but that's a point. That's one data point that you're looking at. It's a very small data point. So what we do is like I said, we understand what we need to do internally for that business. And then we look elsewhere. You may look at your fee guide. You may do some calling around to see on some of those shop services or the ones that everybody talks about. Keep those where they're at. We'll mess around. We'll deal with all the other services that are 100 plus that nobody's looking at and making sure that they're fair to you and fair to the client and allow you to get to where you need to be.
That's amazing. It's so fascinating. Pricing, which appears to be the magic sauce, is such a complex thing. It's, I run a software as a service company. Ivan's done the same in the past. Anytime that we have a conversation around pricing as entrepreneurs, same as our veterinary listeners or business owners, there's some people that just can't handle it and want to kind of go and jump off a ledge. Like it always creates a fight. It always creates argument. How do you guide people through those disagreements or, oh, we can't charge that much? What does that look like? How does that conversation go? And how does it go in veterinary medicine? I'm interested to hear.
Yeah. Well, I think the good thing is if we just lay the software out there and let people have at it, yes, it would be valuable to them, but it wouldn't be nearly as valuable if you had somebody that is really the facilitator and also helping you through that process with the software. So that's why we have profit solver consultants who are individuals who have been in the industry for 20 plus years. They're CVPMs, MBAs, and they really help you take this information and data and help you understand it. So your question is, how do you avoid the fights and people are reluctant to do certain things? There's no arm twisting being done here. What we do is it's very objective. It's very data oriented. So when we go through this, we're now introducing you to, things that you haven't seen before. And I will say the light goes off and the eyes get bigger when you get a doctor in there who's been discounting right and left or just doesn't believe in the pricing. When they start seeing the numbers and let's say that they've been losing 38%, which equates to, let's say, $78 every time they do this particular service, it kind of gets their attention. It makes them think a little differently. My time that I spend here is probably not where it should be. I should hand that off to a tech earlier. Now I see and I can understand why. So it really helps them see the picture without just someone talking to them. Now we can see the data behind it.
Ivan, it reminds me of a story you told me like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. This is very interesting. We took an approach. So the change management piece that Sean is talking about is the hardest I find in the clinics. And so in our organization, every employee, receptionist, technician, everybody owns a piece of the company. And we spend tremendous amount of time on educating them on the financials and the P&L. Every receptionist knows how to look at P&L, what the COGS are, what the labor line should be. Every month we are doing the town hall where we talk about these numbers, full open book management. And the interesting thing is that only that, I think, creates a significant buy-in because it affects everybody from receptionist who quotes the exam fee to the technician who's presenting the estimate. So we took the approach of a complete information and brainstorm and involved every layer. And we forgot to include assistants. And then we had to go back before rollout and negotiate with assistants that they will be okay with it. So it's actually so hard in the vet clinics. But I want to pivot. So let's say we adjusted the prices and then that ultimately create the budget. I want to ask you a question. How many vets come to you that run business and don't budget their financials? Like percentage wise.
That's a high percentage. It is astounding. I speak at a lot of events, and one of the things I do is I raise your hand if you have a budget in place for next year. And I am surprised and flabbergasted that it is out of, let's say, a room of 100, there'll be maybe 15 to 20 hands that go up, which is just astonishing. And let alone, I do ask them, I say, hey, who has a profit plan for next year for 2025? Nobody's hand goes up. What are you talking about? What profit plan? What do you mean? So there's a lot of education that still needs to be done. Understand that most of these individuals went to school for being a doctor, science-based. They hate math. They don't want anything to do with business, but the good ones that I see are the ones that really value what they do. They take the time to understand the business. They get into the numbers to a certain point, but they also pull in people that are professionals that can help them understand it. And those professionals are the ones that are, helping them along. People like us, people like consultants that are out in the industry that really help them do what you do best, and then we'll come in and we'll complement you. Look at us as a fractional CFO. We come in, we do a very specific task, and we kind of help you, where you don't have the resources to hire a CFO. We can fill that role to make you more educated and help you along with those things.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic and super duper valuable. How did you get here? How did you come up with the idea to build the software? And what's the innovation? Sorry, Ivan, that was two questions.
The story really goes back to about 2006, 2008. I was transitioning out of, owning the Taco Bell restaurants, and I was introduced to a friend of mine who had an idea. And I looked at the idea and I thought, well, this is fantastic. It was very crude at the time, but I thought, oh, this really has a lot of application, especially in the vet industry. And we had a friend who was a veterinarian, and he struggled with two very specific things. One, he was struggling with profitability. I need more cash flow. My profit's not great. I need to pay myself more. I mean, you name it, it was there. The second thing is, I'm horrible at setting service fees. Can you help me? And so, with those two challenges, we really built this software application to solve that. And we got a patent on the application. And there's, like I said, there's time and motion studies built in, and it's a fairly sophisticated software application, but it really works really super well when we add a consultant to it to kind of bring it together to make it really of high value to business owners and practice managers.
Amazing.
So I think that the big secret sauce is the time motion and the all the consumables and what goes into it. And there's a huge and actually this is a very interesting question because we invited a fractional CFO right now to help us to stand up some systems. And I think that veterinary is probably one of the very few industries where they look at the inventory management and then the correlation of inventory spend during the services and they never map to each other.
Correct.
Is that something that you do, or do you still advise that it's just disconnected thing in vet medicine? We just all label it as COGS and we just wanted to keep it under a certain percentage. Or what's your approach to that?
Yeah, and there are two different categories here. So what you just talked about is we're still important. We don't eliminate that. But what we did is we came up with a service fee calculation that will incorporate that inventory cost. So if you think about, hey, how do I figure out how to do how do I create a service fee? Well, we include the labor cost, the inventory, any equipment that you're using in that service is going to be included in there, plus capturing all your overhead for the business, plus your desired profit. So our calculation is very detailed, very extensive, and it pulls everything that you would need in your business. So you're accounting for everything. So there's nothing left, no stone unturned. And to your point about inventory cost, it's a natural piece when we look at a service on a service by service basis. The inventory components for that service are in there and they're pulled in. And guess what? We get to charge for those in a different way in the service than we do normally when we do a vaccine or we're selling product or something of that nature.
I think you've just had enough time to whet the appetite of many curious veterinarians. I'm sure they would love to learn more about what you're doing, Steve, but we've run out of time. A couple questions before we wrap up, Steve. First is a book, a YouTube video, a TED Talk, something you found inspiring that you'd like to share with our guests.
Well, I think one is that I do enjoy and I read it every so often is The One Thing. And The One Thing by Gary Keller is it's really just about practical advice. And it's practical advice both in personal and professional life. And I think there's so many great, actionable items and things that you should be looking at, whether it be, how do I manage my time better? How do I simplify success? How do I just focus and clear out all the background noise on all these other things going on in my life? And really focus on the things that I should be focusing on that are priority. And so The One Thing is a great read. I think you read it before, read it again. You always pick up something every time you go through that.
That's an awesome recommendation. And there's two more questions that I want to ask. One is, where do people find you? And is there a website? Where do they go?
Yeah, so you can find us at www.profitsolver.com. Is one way to find us. And you can also find me, Steve Castillo, on LinkedIn. And I'd be more than happy to share my time with you and do some discovery with some of the people that are listening on today.
Perfect. And the last question that we usually ask, who is another innovator in this industry that you would recommend to be on this show?
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of great innovators out there who have a lasting impact, but one that has I think Anton Visser of Cubex is really an unsung hero for solving these unglamorous tasks of out of control inventory and lost revenue challenges. And I think he's done a wonderful job with Cubex and what they've done. They're very innovative.
Thank you so much for listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast. If you want to hear about our new episodes, please follow us on any social media channel. Also, you can check out our website at veterinaryinnovationpodcast.com. See you next week.